wanted to bring you an analysis of the draft game that was released yesterday from PC Gamer. I watched this footage and I thought it was actually really fascinating. And I've watched a lot of the footage, but this is one of the ones that I thought there's a lot of neat decision points. PC Gamer had a lot of tough decisions over the course of the game, and they really affected how things worked out. They ultimately do win in the end, spoiler alert, but definitely it's fascinating to see how these things play out together. Now, we're playing a red-black deck on this side, and our opponent, Skaff Elias, who's a Valve member, he is playing a green-blue deck. Now, Ball Lightning here is an interesting card. So Ball Lightning allows you to move a hero to any empty spot. Now, one of the things that you may not realize, though, is that this actually works with Storm Spirit because it procs his passive ability, which gives him +2 attack. So it would have been possible to actually move Storm Spirit over, proc that ability, kill the Skywrath Mage, get an extra 5 gold. Actually, it would have been 4 gold because you would have killed the one last creep. Would have left you with 6 gold. Maybe you can pick up the Stone Hull armor that you actually saw in the shop there. So there actually was it was a small mistake in the sense of it was just one small play, but makes a really big difference in how the game ends up playing out, because you will actually see here that this last lane ends up going quite poorly for the PC Gamer's side. So anyway, though, doesn't decide to do that. Instead, uses the resources much differently. Now, we do use a home field advantage here on the first lane for Skaff Elias' side. This is a powerful card you'll see over the course of this game. It does a lot of work. But for the PC Gamer's side, he ends up trying to take a very aggressive stance, which I'm sort of skeptical of. Just trying to basically go face, using the Ball Lightning to position the Bounty Hunter so that it's just able to hit the tower. I think that's probably wrong, especially given that we have the home field advantage in that lane. Like things are probably going to slow down there, so trying to just go pure aggro is a little bit rough. But anyway, we do have some more plays over the course in the mid lane here, some resource exchanges. The last lane here is going very slowly. Of course, we have a couple of cards drawn for our opponent, which is a nice little play for him, some light damage, and moving on to the next shopping phase. One thing I want to know quickly here is we see the Traveler's Cloaks. This is something that takes a lot of play in the draft decks. It's a really, really good card, and I actually kind of feel like there might be some reason to nerf it because people just play it in all of their decks. Also, I want to note that Sniper is coming out here on the 3rd round. This is the 5th position hero. Sniper is a really good 5th position hero because of his active ability, Headshot, that is a 3 cooldown ability that deals 5 damage. So it means that he only has to stay alive for 1 turn, and you get that 1 damage. Drop a couple cards, gank. Now, this is, of course, the activation animation for the home field advantage. Very fun little animation there. But it is worth noting then now that the Bounty Hunter is disarmed. So that really limits the plays that are available for this lane here. You can still cast black spells, though. So disarm only limits the damage that you can make. It's different than stun. So going to just deploy a creep here, Sister of the Veil. Skywrath Mage ends up doing a lot of work. Also, should note that the opponent has 2 Skywrath Mages. This is something that you can do in Gauntlet, that you have access to multiples of them, using something like Tower Barrage as well, pairing with it to get a lot of damage in there. Having these Traveler's Cloaks, though, as a response to damage effect is a really good way to save it, even when you have no mana available. So that's quite strong to use there. The second lane, though, as you can probably see, is going pretty well for PC Gamer, or pretty rough for Skaff. Skaff is continuing to devote resources to the lane for the purposes of sort of slowing stuff down, but very clearly it's not going well, and there's a lot of damage that's starting to come through, and now just having 2 heroes there as well. So hopefully he wants to try to limit the losses there and slow down the hero kills, or the tower kill rather, that's there. But in lane number 3 here, we definitely have some problems as the black-red side, as that Storm Spirit is going to have a hard time staying in the lane. Now, one thing to note here is that right now we get the Dimensional Portal on the other side, counter this play of playing the Traveler's Cloak. Gank now can kill anything if you want to do, because this is pairing between the extra attack that you get from playing the spell you can get him up to 10, attack and kill basically anything that you want over the course of the entire board. He ends up not doing this, I think, to preserve initiative, which I think is a bizarre choice in some ways, because you could, for instance, use it right now in order to kill something like the Skywrath Mage in the first lane, and which is ultimately how he ends up using things. I'm not sure exactly. One thing to note here is actually that the Apotheosis play, this is going to come up again, that's in the center shop slot there, and it's an important element of the game moving forward. Okay, so we're beginning to see some trends here where usually I think it's actually pretty common that by the 6 mana turn, you can identify what are the lanes that are going well for which player and who's going to be battling for what. And it's pretty clear the opponent is really taking over lane number 3 and PC Gamer is taking over lane number 2. So the lane that is the most important, obviously, therefore, is lane number 1, which is part of the reason why this home field advantage is going to be pretty crippling. Now, there's a lot of options in hand for the PC Gamer. Decides to go for the Amexia Arena. This is an improvement that lets you draw a card every time you play every time you lose a hero. This allows his opponent to play the Mystic Flare, which takes down Bounty Hunter. This is a interesting play because I think that you can really expect to get that Mystic Flare that's going to be happening in response, because we're at the 6 mana turn and we have 2 Skywrath Mages in the deck. So, like, you know, there's a really high chance that you're going to have one that's really good in this position. So I'm not sure whether he was conceding to that happening or not. I can't see enough of the hand to tell for sure if there was any other options. There's part of me that feels like you could have just ganked the Skywrath Mage to shut that down, and while you wouldn't draw as many cards, it would have slowed the progression of the opponent. Also, so in this lane now, there's a bit of a question of whether or not it's correct, in my mind, to actually line up that Venomancer into this lane. Part of the reason why is because you have, for instance, a sniper that's there that can, you know that this ability is going to be active for it, so you're going to have to use this healing potion on the Venomancer, and you're probably going to just lose this lane one way or another. Now, I do think that using enough magic in that lane for PC Gamer is actually a mistake. Sister of the Veil allows you to direct the attack to the Venomancer, guaranteeing a kill there. Maybe you're really scared of a blue spell, but instead decide to go with the enough magic, which I really am not quite a fan of. But ends up deciding to just go enough magic, pass the turn, still far ahead in that lane, definitely conceding lane number 3, and committing his Storm Spirit into that lane number 1, which is very clearly the money lane, the value lane, where the majority of the fighting is going to be happening. Another thing I want to quickly note is actually about the abandoning lane 3, and because I think that this is a particularly good decision in this kind of matchup. For a blue-green deck, if you have certain green cards like Lycan or Emissary of the Quorum, there are ways to really snowball a given lane and actually take down an Ancient, but with just like a puny Skywrath Mage and being the only blue hero in the lane and a handful of creeps, it's going to be really hard to take down both the tower and the Ancient. Already you've seen that they've taken a lot of time to just kill the tower, so kind of abandoning that last lane is pretty safe because it's going to be really hard to take down that Ancient. Now, this Assassinate, though, this is clutch. Perfect target, taking down that, getting a bunch of gold as a result, buffing up the Storm Spirit. Of course, should note the Storm Spirit cannot kill that Skywrath Mage because it is disarmed from that home field advantage, which has done just incredible work over the course of this game. So, ends up taking the 12 damage, though, so this lane is not looking great, but it feels probably more winnable than lane 3, so it's worth, I think, doing the necessary commit in. So lane 2, you have this move here that is a strong move to slow down the progression of the opponent of at any cost, deal 6 damage to everything, including your own side. This does reset the lane in some respects, but I really have a hard time believing that was the correct play for that lane. It doesn't change the damage math too much, especially because you're probably going to lose this lane anyway, and like I'm not sure exactly what his goals are here of using something like the at any cost when, I mean, I guess this is going to be the lane that's going to be the best in, right? Like, it's going to be in this lane where it's going to end up being used one way or another, because, I mean, you're not going to use it in this lane, obviously, and in the first lane, maybe it'll get value, maybe it won't. I don't know. I mean, I can see that the first lane of being a good tool as well, given the fact that your heroes, some of them are kind of hearty, like the Magnus and the Viper, but I don't know, that one's a close call in my mind. But anyway, Skywrath Mage deals a bit more damage, slowly pecking down at that tower, and almost there. We have enough gold to buy a couple different items, and ends up opting for the golden ticket, which I find hard to believe that the value. I actually definitely want to check what like the average value is of a golden ticket, because it's a really hard card in my mind to use properly. Okay, so recap of how things are going. First lane is winnable, but there are definitely some problems here. So the bounty hunter is going to have to do some serious work in conjugation with that storm spirit. Storm spirit is definitely the weaker of the two heroes here. Just, I mean, looking at the stats, it's pretty obvious. Home field advantage, though, man, has it done so much work, and I just really want to get some of these cards out of my hand. One of the things that we see this play right here, we actually gank the Skywrath Mage from the beginning to limit all the possibilities of our opponent. This is a really strong play because it shuts off your opponent's blue spells. Skaff is, of course, playing a 3 blue, 2 green hero mix. Blue heroes tend to be a lot squishier. In this deck, he's playing the Skywrath Mages and the Vanomancer, and they've just been dying a ton, and then there's one that's locked into the third lane. So easy to imagine there might be a lot of blue cards that are locked in the opponent's hand, so keeping them off of those blue heroes for as long as possible is really nice. Now, we see this play in the Rebel Decoy moving in front of the Storm Spirit. This might be something that you say is like, aha, we have an opportunity now to kill the Ancient by doing something like the Slay as opposed to using the Trebuchet. It's worth remembering, though, that the Storm Spirit has been disarmed by the home field advantage, so it cannot kill the opponent. It's not going to do any damage one way or another. Part of me, though, then makes me wonder whether it's worth playing the Decoy, given the fact that maybe it would have been better to play it in front of the Bounty Hunter to limit the damage there. Because definitely the damage is going to be something that matters a lot. We're clearly in a damage race in this position. So, interesting question. Now, next we see a play that I don't quite understand why we've done it here. So we play the Book of the Dead over our Traveler's Cloak, which gives the same amount of health, which means that the health total doesn't change, gives the ability technically that's associated with it, where we now can spawn zombies, maybe, but there's no creeps in lane to really power that up. I don't even feel like it was worth spending the initiative there to use that. So definitely an odd usage of cards here. So we play an untrained Grunt as well. This is, I imagine, for the purposes of blocking the damage that's coming from the Magnus, which is pretty substantial. We have the 616, which is not crazy stats, but it's definitely not, you know, shameful. But we do get a flip here. This is a nice thing to do to help work down that Storm Spirit. Maybe that's just the goal all along, but focusing down that. Now, this next play, though, I think is actually a major punt from PC Gamer. In the hand, we see the Ogre Conscript. You could actually play Ogre Conscript and then teleport out the Bristleback and take down the tower here, and your opponent can't do anything about it. We're going to deal the exactly 9 damage, and you get the Bristleback out of the lane in order to redeploy it sooner. And maybe if you really value the initiative that much, it's kind of worth it, but like that just feels like such a hard sell given how much value there is in getting him out of that lane. You really want to move him into that first lane, which is where all the action is. Finally, tower number 3 goes down for PC Gamer. Yeah, after all of this time and whittling it away, like this is what I was talking about before, that blue decks just cannot take down Ancients without help from something like a green card of some description. So that's been kind of rough. But continuing on here, we're moving all in on lane number 1, as you might expect. Now, Ravage should be up, though, for Tidehunter, which is a pretty wonderful play, which might be the reason why he wanted to preserve the initiative? I mean, I don't really think so, given the fact that 22 was such a big number, and you're going to get a Ravage off one way or another. Like, it's like, I mean, maybe they silence it, I guess. But yeah, we got a Ravage off. Low rolls across the board, though. Hits nothing else. I kind of feel like that was bugged or something. But maybe he really is just that unlucky. But that's a solid Ravage in terms of positioning, though, because taking out 2 heroes leaves your opponent with just 1 green hero still to deploy. Plays the Rose Leaf Rejuvenator, which sets up for a good chunk of damage, a really nice swing of the life totals, but now PC Gamer can respond with a Slay and kill it in response, greatly reducing the damage, and that is a lovely exchange in his favor. Now, this is actually one of the moments of this that I wanted to talk about the most, because while I'm confident about a lot of the plays I've suggested over the course of this video, this is one of the moments where I'm the most confused as to what to do. So if you wanted to, like, pause the video, comment, and, like, give me your idea. I know it's hard to do without seeing the whole hand, but you can probably piece it together by looking at everything. But there's a lot of options. You can use Sniper's ability, you can play the Ogre Conscript. There's just, like, what are you trying to accomplish here, and what's the most important? And I think that these sorts of situations with cluttered boards are some of the most important for skilled players to take advantage. PC Gamer ends up going with the Ogre Conscript, though. There's part of me that's interested in the Cursed Satyr and then follow it up with the Kraken Shell for the purposes of just locking in initiative, which should be a nice tool to have access to in the upcoming turns, because you're not going to be doing anything in the following turns. Like, that's pretty obvious. There's nothing else to do, really. And the Satyr isn't crazy bad in this situation. I mean, it definitely has a downside of giving the zombies in this, so maybe I'm overvaluing just getting the cards in my hand or preserving initiative, though. Hard to tell. Finally activates that ability to clear the way for the the Bounty Hunter. Now, I do think in this position that playing for tower damage does become more obviously a worthwhile element to focus on. This is clearly a game that is going to be coming down to burn spells and who can take down the tower, get that last bit of damage in first. So setting things up properly so that you can get that damage through is definitely beneficial. Now, we do finally see the teleport out for the Bristleback, which will allow him to be redeployed into that first lane. Turn late, in my opinion, but still better late than never. So, take that down. Things are going slowly. Obviously, that's never going down because of the home field advantage as well. Here, slowly working down that tower number 3. Nothing matters in those 2 lanes. Want to mention this. Apotheosis play quickly once again. This is a card that is going to be, I think, blocking some of the other cards. It wasn't as apparent there, but it's going to show up once again in the course of this game, that it's just blocking the PC Gamer from buying anything that's useful, which is a problem. One of the downsides of playing these expensive cards in your deck, in your item deck specifically. So, as you can probably imagine, Bristleback going into lane number 1. And, of course, for the opponent as well, Skywrath Mage going into lane number 1 has given up on lane number 2 for obvious reasons. All in on that lane. Now, the question is, what do we do? Now, there's a lot of possibilities here, and I personally would have liked him to spend some time carefully deliberate out all the different possibilities. The home field advantage does hit the creep, which is lucky for PC Gamer. But what do we do now? We can do things like Vicious Nasal Goo to decrease the health of the heroes. It's probably not the best right now. It's better in the earlier turns of the game. Ends up going for the Tyler Estate here, actually after the Steal Strength from the opponent. Now, Tyler Estate, this is a 4-cost improvement that gives -2 mana. It's worth noting, though, that the way this works is that on your lane, it functionally costs 6, because it gives you, you go from 10 out of 10 in this case to 4 out of 8 as opposed to 6 out of 8. So just how they count the math there, really important point. Now, blocking the use of something like Mystic Flare, though, might have really been that important. I can't see enough of the hand to verify whether there was another path for killing, silencing, stunning, or whatever the Skywrath Mage, because I mean, I guess even the Skywrath Mage is not incredible in this position. Like, for instance, if they did use the Mystic Flare on the Tide Hunter, yeah, you would kill the I guess killing these Storm Spirit is pretty bad under these conditions. I mean, it's hard to know exactly what their thought process is. I'm just trying to think about, like, if I was thinking through this position. We do have a Caught Unprepared, though, that is used on the Bristleback, which could end up being a big deal. Right now, we don't have a whole lot of gold in the coffers in order to set that up, so it's going to actually hold Bristleback out of position for the turn and slow things down. So big attack here, get hip fire, get Oath, but it should be mentioned, of course, that the opponent is at 3 health, which is not a lot, especially when you have a Trebuchet in hand. So, second lane, once again, doesn't matter, home field advantage, better take out that creep. I also was a little bit hesitant as to deploying the home field advantage in that second lane earlier on in the game. Felt like there might have been a possibility to deploy into the first lane as well. Yeah, but see, right here is what I'm talking about, that Apotheosis play. It's just blocking purchasing anything else that's useful. I don't really quite know what your deck needs to look like in order to play that for draft, but this deck clearly is not capable of playing that consistently. We're in the late game right now. If it was going to be able to buy it, it probably would be under these conditions. We actually do briefly see a payday in the deck later on, but I feel like you need multiples of them in order to actually justify these expensive cards. Bristleback is still stunned, but we do still have the possibility to play the red cards because of the Tide Hunter. We stunned the blue hero. Once again, this has been something like just a subtle thing that's been going on here out of the PC Gamer's side, is trying to shut down the blue heroes specifically. There's a lot of reason to believe that the hand is just packed with blue cards that are uncastable. I also just want to mention the unsupervised munitions in this situation can't be activated. This is a card that can do 4 damage to the enemy tower, but you need to have all of your opponent's heroes blocked. A Shield of Aquila, though, this is a really strong one to play, but none of this really matters, though, given that we can kill the ancient, the tower next turn as a result of just the pig effects from the Trebuchet. I mean, obviously there's a possibility of healing effects, and I don't quite know all of the tools that are available here in order to stop that. And we actually are going to seeing some very passive play from PC Gamer, which is, I think, good in this position because you're in a winning board state and you're forcing your opponent to do something. So even here, I'm kind of reticent to play the untrained grunt here because you weren't actually losing yet. I mean, obviously it's scary to take the damage from Viper, but it doesn't do anything unless you are actually losing the game. And so I'm interested in that. Now, there is, of course, the question about whether or not we should be slaying the creep that's in front of the bounty hunter, because this would set up a kill on the ancient, which, I mean, not in the ancient, once again, the tower, which is obviously very appealing, but you don't need to right now. There's no reason that you have to do it because you should be able to kill it with the Trebuchet next turn. Like, let your opponent try to spend all of these cards, try to trigger you to do something else, and force them into that awkward position. So I can understand the play and the decision to be very tentative and very patient here. It ends up working out in the end. There's part of me that really wants to just pull it off and see what happens, but ultimately the opponent does not end up having any of the tools that are necessary in order to heal his tower or to take down the ancients in these other lanes. So we are going to get to the end of the game with a ping at the very end. But this has been brought to you by a+space Games, and I just want to remind you also that we are sponsored by Ink Gaming. There's a link below, and then also if you go there and use the code a+space12, all capitals, and then 12 at the end, you can get 12% off your order. It's been lovely to do this with you. Hopefully I'll be able to do some more game analysis as we get later on into things. I can't wait for us to get into the draft, get lots more footage for me to talk about. But check out the site and check out the sponsors. Greatly appreciate you joining us today. Gonna send things off as we go to the end of the game, draw cards, finally get that ping damage, and that'll do it. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. Talk to you again soon.